And welcome to another webinarexperts.co.uk video. This week we're talking about the impact of coronavirus on events and conferences around the world. Virtual events have been around for some time. However, with a number of high-profile conferences being cancelled due to the fears over the COVID-19 coronavirus, the topic has rapidly been gathering momentum. Lev, does that surprise you?
Yeah, well, we've seen a number of cancellations around the world. The Geneva Motor Show, Zendesk, Shopify, Adobe Summit, all of those have been cancelled. And it was a very similar scenario 10 years ago when the Icelandic volcano erupted.
Can you name that one for us?
I would dearly love to, I just can't. I tried so many times. And it was a very similar situation then, so it doesn't surprise me that the momentum is there for these, for virtual events. It doesn't surprise me that these events have been cancelled. So at the time, there was the inability to travel. Now it's obviously the risk of infection, the fear of infection that's keeping people at home and doing less travel. So no, so it doesn't surprise me at all.
So from a tech perspective, are there any parallels with 10 years ago?
So we live in a very different time now, technology-wise. Remote working, home working, remote conferencing is a lot more commonplace. Web conferencing tools such as Zoom and Microsoft Teams and so on are much more intuitive, much easier now than 10 years ago. So in that sense, we are in a different time. And what that means also is that setting up virtual events 10 years ago would have been a lot more involved, a lot more complicated, and also from a mindset perspective would have been very differently perceived. Today, that's very different. There are calls for them now as there were then. I think what we'll see is that there's going to be a lot easier and better and more innovative ways of setting these events up and them being adopted as well.
So do you think this will have a lasting effect on the ongoing use of virtual events?
Well, I think one of the parallels we'll see, talking about parallels compared to 10 years ago, is that there will be an uplift, but there will also be a reduction when the world gets on top of COVID-19. So I think we will see that reduction afterwards. It will go back towards business as usual as it was done before. That said, I think with the pervasiveness of remote working, of virtual events and so on, in the mindset of people anyway these days, I think there will be a taste for those companies who have replaced their physical events with virtual events to do more of them because they've been forced into this experience. They've now experienced how to do it and they see some of the benefits. So I do think that there will be a taste for innovation around how these can be done. And I think that will be very different to how it's been done before. So I think there is some future for virtual events and how they evolve as part of this experience that we're going through.
Could you elaborate a little bit on the innovation side of things, what you think might happen?
Yeah, so traditionally the virtual trade shows have been sort of these 2D experiences. Yeah. I think what we'll see as part of what we're going through now is this need to innovate, for companies to look at how can we do that. And initially they were quite involved. I think where we're moving towards to now, and I think what we'll see as a result of that is people will look at how can we do this? How can we build streams? How we can create this user experience? How can we make something quickly that is very effective, that looks nice with the technology that's available today? So I think as a result of that, I think the virtual event space will see this shift in innovation as well as to what will a virtual event look like. How is it executed? And I think that will look very different to traditional virtual events that we've seen before.
Cool. So can you give us your advice for anyone wanting to start? What are your 6 top tips on anyone wanting to start up with the virtual events?
How did you know there were 6? I did post about this on LinkedIn not too long ago. So virtual events, it's easy to think that virtual events are just because they're online, they're just quick to do. You should have the same diligent planning approach as you would have for physical events. There is the same amount of content, there's the same amount of logistics behind it. It just so happens that it's online as opposed to physical. So that is the first step. The second step is what suitable tools do you already have within your company? Yeah. What do you have? Check your software subscriptions, see what there is perhaps in different parts of the organization, check in with HR and learning and development. Often they have tools that might well be suitable for a virtual event. So do check what you have already, because using something you already have will be much quicker than bringing a new vendor on board. And then check what experience exists within the organization of running virtual events. Just because your team hasn't done one before doesn't mean that there aren't people within the team that may have experienced it elsewhere, or within other teams within the organization who may have done that, or again, who have people who've experienced running virtual events before. So that's another point. Just check what is available, ask around, and gather that information and see what is available. And then, of course, act. You need to act quickly now. It's likely that you've been caught out by this. If you have to cancel your event, you do need to serve up something else. You have your other timelines and campaigns to think about as well. So act, begin executing, begin planning, don't cut corners. It's very important that you look at what is the best quality output for and most convenient item for your audience, rather than what's most convenient for you. So do make it a great quality experience for your audience as well. And some of these conferences that have been cancelled were paid events. Don't try and come up with a convoluted online payment model for a virtual event. It's not business as usual, as we said. This is, you still need to appeal to a large audience. You still need to bring them in. This is different to what they expected that was going to happen with you. So you need to take a look at bringing the volume in of people. Putting a gated payment gateway in front of that is likely that you'll then have a significant reduction in attendees. And then, of course, have a follow-up plan afterwards. Engage your audience. Don't just run a stream or multiple streams or a virtual event and then say, right, we've done it. Actually have a plan to follow up afterwards as well.
Okay, cool. So we talk about virtual events, but what's the role of webinar specifically in this, and how do you separate and define the two?
So webinars, depending on your definition of what a webinar or webcast is, will play a good role in this. That said, I think there will be the need for perhaps ungated live streams. We mentioned ungating your virtual event. Yeah. What you might find is a hybrid model where you have your keynotes where you want most people to attend as ungated live streams, but then maybe the breakout sessions or the different multi-language sessions go into gated webinars where you then have different level of engagement, and that will be, I think, a model that will see this kind of hybrid approach. And again, that comes down then to the innovation of each company and how they want to create the experience for their audience as well. So try not to fully gate your keynotes and make it so difficult to join. Given the situation that you're in, what you want to do is engage your audience, bring them in, listen to your messaging, and I think webinars will play a role in that as well.
Brilliant. I really appreciate it, Alex. Thanks for joining us today. If you've got any questions on virtual events or webinars and how they can work for your business at this time, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Otherwise, subscribe to us over on YouTube and LinkedIn, and make sure you follow us on Twitter as well. Thanks very much.